Hey everyone, Kelly here. I want to thank you for joining me again today. And I just want to answer one of the questions that someone had asked on in the comments on another video that I had was, how the hell do you go through 47 years of your life and not know that you're transgender? And, or I should say, and not have dysphoria. And the thing is that something that you have to realize is that we live in a very different time now. Transgender and gender dysphoria is something that is in the media now. It's something that's talked about. I was born in 1971. I grew up in a small rural area in southern Saskatchewan. If you're from the States, you probably won't be able to relate very much, but Canada is the same landmass as the United States, if not a little bit larger. And we have got 1/10 of the population base is what you guys do. The largest city in our province of 11 million people now is got roughly 300,000 people living in it. So, I mean, you don't have a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. And especially in the 1970s, I mean, growing up in a community where you had like 200 to 300 people living there, I mean, the only thing that was ever heard of was gay or lesbian. And I mean, at that, one of my earliest memories of my dad putting me in my place was that he said, quote unquote, "No son of mine is going to be a faggot." I also remember getting beat up by my brothers because I played with Barbie dolls. I remember getting caught and scolded because I was dressing up in my mom's and my sister's clothes. And they all thought that I was just this weird, perverse little kid. And so again, in that time, you learn what kept you safe and what got you into trouble. And there was no way out. There was no help. There was nobody to talk to. So that's how I spent all of my childhood. And then when I got into be a later teens, early adult, very quickly after I graduated, I met my first wife. We fell in love and we got married. And I did the normal thing that normal guys do. And any time that I showed any signs of being anything different than that, she shut it down very quickly. And I don't want to speak badly about my first wife because, God rest her soul, she was a very beautiful person. But we had a tough marriage for 10 years. And cancer kind of was one of the best things that happened to us because it turned our relationship around. And yeah, I won't go there. But anyhow, whenever I brought out any feelings or emotions of any way that I felt or that I wanted to be as a human being, she very quickly shut it down. And we kind of had a rule around our house was that if she had a problem, we had a problem. If I had a problem, there was no problem. And again, like I said, I'll leave it at that because I don't want to speak badly about my past wife. But that was kind of how I made it into my 30s and still not knowing. I was also very active since I was knee-high to a grasshopper in the Catholic Church. Then when I got into adulthood, moved to the larger city of Saskatoon, which has at that time about 210,000 people or something like that. And again, I got involved with the church. I was one of the pianists there. I was very active in a lot of different ministries. And what happened was all of these feelings that I had all my entire life that were bottled up, any time that I thought about them, I was a sinner, I was perverse, I was not right, not normal. So you learn to stuff them all down again. Fast forward a little bit and get married to my second wife, and we are now in a Mennonite Brethren church, which is very evangelical. And again, I'm involved in music ministry. I'm also involved in daycare ministry, and absolutely love being with kids. My heart, I wish I could have had my own children, my own body, but again, that's the whole transgender, that's the whole gender dysphoria. And up until last year, as a man, if I would have told somebody, yeah, I wish I could have pushed a baby out, like, that's something that just would be a showstopper in a conversation right there, right? And so that is how you end up going 47 years, stuffing your dysphoria down where it'll never come up. And anytime you ever have those thoughts, you just push them away because you don't want to be thought of as weird or perverse. And all my entire life, I've never known the difference between transgender or cross-dresser or drag queen, because it was taught in the churches that I belonged to that it was just all perverse. It was all a sin. And there was no differentiation between any of them. And we got out of the church scene, 6-7 years ago now. And no offense to anybody who is in their faith, but we have found much more faith and much more belief in a much larger universe, leaving the mainstream religions than ever before. And that was really when we started to open up to the beauty of love is love, regardless of what it looks like. And that is one of the reasons why it was so easy for us to make the decision to transition this late in life. My wife looked at me when I was, we had watched an HBO documentary called The Trans List, and the entire movie, we just kind of looked at each other and our jaws had dropped and we said, holy crap. Like, it was not even a question about my gender identity. When we watched that show, we just both knew that that's who I was, that's who I always have been. And so my wife looked at me afterwards and we let it sit for a couple of days. And we were having coffee one morning and she says, so what do you want to do about this? And I said, well, I spent 47 years being in this body. I mean, what's another 45, 50 more, And she said, but would that make you happy? For the first time in my life, that's the first time that anybody has ever validated my feelings. And that's what being transgender is that it's not something that's broken with the mind. It's not something that is perverse. It's not something that is a disconnect between the brain and the body. For me, being transgender is more of a heart issue. It's my spirit not aligning with who I am in this human body. And my experience on this earth has not been a very good one for 47 years because I haven't been able to ride around in the vehicle that I've wanted to, that I know that I should have been. And like I said, any time that I've brought those feelings up or spoke to anybody about it, they just kind of look at me like I'm from another planet. And my wife last year was the first person ever to validate those feelings. So it's not that I haven't had gender dysphoria for a very long time, like I said, since my first memory. In fact, when I had my diagnosis this past year, the psychiatrist looked at me at the end of the interview and said, yeah, you're kind of textbook for it. And again, I was excited, and they said, normally people don't get excited over a diagnosis, that they have a mental disorder. And I thought to myself, but this validates who I am as a human being. And it validates me to say that I'm not crazy, that the way that I've felt my entire life has actually been my truth. And kids today have it so much easier than what adults do. Take that with a grain of salt. I'll just explain that a little bit so I don't get a bunch of comments. Because it's so much more in the mainstream, people talk about it, and they talk about it openly. And the world has grown so much more, and communication has grown so much more. Hell, I was in my 20s before the internet actually existed. So you have to keep that in mind. Facebook came along when I was in my 30s. So yeah, that's again how you go your entire life and not have an explanation for how you feel. But kids today, because it's so much more mainstream, and because parents are so much more on board with it, you can spot those and identify the issues earlier on in your life. And there actually is support groups out there. I don't know when transgender actually started to become mainstream, again, because it was not in my peripheral view and in my vision, that it wasn't something that I was looking for definition of. It's only because we stumbled across it that we identified with it and said, wow, that's who I am. So I just want to thank everybody for watching this video. I hope that you were able to glean some support or some help from it. And our puppy dog just came in the room. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe. Please share this video. Embed it on your blog pages. Do whatever you want with it. But I just know for myself that when I started transitioning, man, I searched YouTube like crazy. And other people's videos were just so helpful to me. But they were all of teenagers and people in their 20-somethings. And there was just so very little out there for people in their fourth or fifth decades being around. And so hopefully this will help some of you guys out there who are going through the same things that I have. So I love you all very much, and I hope to see you in the next video. And take care. Love you all. Bye.